So according to Thames Valley Police, Mercy, 100,000 people turned out for the procession in Windsor yesterday. And if you know anything about Windsor, it's basically a very small town with an enormous castle in the middle of it. So 100,000 people literally packed the streets yesterday to see the procession. And we know the very deep relationship that Windsor has with Her Majesty the Queen, so perhaps not a surprise. As that very private burial service with the family, no media invited, took place last night, the royal family tweeted a couple of pictures, unseen pictures of the Queen from her past. The first from 1971, a colour picture of her at Balmoral walking uphill with a staff in her hand, one of the other royal residences that she loved to spend a lot of private time at. And then also a picture, and this is very relevant to the ceremony that took place last night, a black and white picture of her with her family, with her mother and father, Prince Philip, and also her sister. And of course she's now been laid to rest with them in the King George Memorial burial place inside the chapel just inside Windsor Castle behind me. In terms of how Windsor's feeling today, it is still quite busy, although nowhere near as busy as yesterday and nowhere near as busy as it has been in the past week. In the last few minutes, the barriers on this side of the road have been taken away by contractors. They're still in place on the other side of the road. There is still some media around reporting on what's going on. Of course, the state mourning period's now over, but as we know, or as anyone who's ever dealt with grief before knows, that some grief is sometimes it's something that never ends, and it's something that you just manage along the way. So the family's official grieving period continues for the next 7 days, but that's only an official grieving period for the family, and who knows how much longer it will last beyond that.
Just on that point about the fact that the official mourning period is over, I mean, have you seen a change in the mood and the atmosphere now that it is the official mourning period is now come to an end?
Yeah, it definitely feels like it. Just very slowly, life in Windsor and indeed around the country, as I was travelling into Windsor, is just starting to crank back into life. You can see on the advertising billboards by motorways, railway stations, they've gone back to bombarding us with messages to buy stuff instead of kind of very dignified pictures of the Queen, in honour of Her Majesty, etc. In fact, if I just look behind me, this shop, this barber shop that faces the castle, this morning when we got here at about 7 a.m, it was covered in, the windows were covered up with pictures of Her Majesty, all in black. They were here very early this morning, pulling them down. So there are signs here that Windsor is starting to crank back to life, and people are starting to get on with their life. But as I say, for the royal family themselves, for them, it's about their great-grandmother, their grandmother, their mother, and the grieving process for them may never end, and it's just a case of managing it.